Hey everyone, and welcome to Eagle Eye presented by Nissan. He's Reuben Frank. I'm Dave Zangaro. Rube, how you doing?
Hanging in.
Little under the weather. We miss you at the live public practice. Had a bunch of Eagle Eye listeners come out, and they're like, "Where's Rube?" And I was like, he'll be back eventually." But it was nice to see everyone.
Yeah, it looked like a fun evening. I felt bad missing it. You guys did a great job.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it was fun. It was a little warm out there, so we were a little steamy by the end of it, but it was fun. Got a lot of good questions. Met a lot of really fun Eagles fans, and then watched a really long practice, over 2 hours at the Linc.
Yeah, and I just kept reloading NBC Sports Philadelphia.com looking for your observations. It's getting late. I'm like, man, how late are they going? But it's good because people come out and they're supporting the team, and I think Nick's predecessor practices would go like an hour. They basically warm up, do some one-on-ones, and call it a day. People would leave disappointed, but it's nice to see that that they put on a good show for the fans. 50,000 fans that came out for the evening.
Yeah, it was a really fun night. So I'll go through a little bit of my observations from that. Won't get too deep into it, but just kind of some big takeaways. We'll do a fun stock up, stock down, kind of tell you what we think of some players who have impressed us or disappointed us through the first 6 practices. Then we have a bunch of questions at the end of the pod we want to get to from that email address, which I'll pop up on the screen now. Why not? We do it at the end. Let's do it in the beginning. It's eagleeye@nbcuni.com. We've gotten a ton of questions, so we appreciate all that.
That's rapidly becoming one of my favorite parts of the pod is you get to the end, and we usually we get to the end, and we're like, well, what else do you want to talk about? And we got these questions, which is a lot of fun.
It's great, and we're getting flooded. So if you don't hear yours, we're trying to get to as many as we can, but there really are a lot. So we appreciate all of that. Rube, as far as this practice goes, the fans got what they wanted to see. The offense looked really, really good on Thursday night. The first team offense, that is, just driving down the field, scoring. It was competitive periods, move the ball type stuff. And it was like a competition, which is fun to watch. It's kind of more game-like. But I thought the Eagles offense looked really good. There was an early play. Jalen Hurts hits A.J. Brown down the right sideline. He got a step on Slay and almost got in the end zone. Slay was able to trip him up. But then a play later, Dallas Goedert catches his first of 3 touchdown passes on the night. The guy who had 3 touchdowns all of last season gets in the end zone 3 times and caught a 2-point conversion. We don't talk about Goedert in the red zone that much, but it's an area where you would think he would thrive, but he hasn't really.
Yeah, and there's been times where he's had success there, but he should be more of a weapon there. I think last year when he missed some games, but 3 touchdowns is just, you expect more from him. And I think maybe yesterday was a sign of things to come as far as Kellen Moore is focusing on Goedert down by the goal line, down in the end zone. I think the more you can avoid Jalen Hurts tush push and that kind of thing, the better. So he should be a weapon in the red zone. And maybe this is, the first hint that that's going to happen this year.
Yeah, it's possible, but you're right. I think that tush push kind of vultures a lot of touchdowns from the running backs and probably from Goedert when you're down that low.
Yeah.
I should mention no Landon Dickerson in this practice. He has a knee injury. We saw him get hurt at the first padded practice. I had to yell at Lane Johnson because him and Landon switched jerseys before the public practice, and I was on a far field, and I saw 69 in a helmet, and I went, oh, wow, Landon's practicing. Sent out the tweet.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they got me good, so I got to yell at Lane for that. They fooled me.
Oh, did you like that one?
Yeah, they'll be happy about that.
Yeah, they will.
But apparently not a serious injury for Landon, not expected to miss much time. But notable, the Eagles right now without potentially their top 2 guards, both Landon Dickerson and Tyler Steen are out.
Yeah, and we'll see if they're their top 2 guards, but I guess for now they are.
Yeah, at least one of them is. And it looks different without Landon in there.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And we've seen them without Tyler Steen. We've seen them without Lane for a couple days. So that's like that's going to happen in camp. Guys are going to miss time. But I mean, I think that's in a way it gives you an idea of what they like as backups, who they're high on, who they're not high on, and get some other guys some reps.
Yeah, you can see the depth chart a little bit. No surprise, Mekhi Becton's still filling in at right guard. They really want to take a long look at him at that position. Left guard, kind of surprised to see them start the evening with Brett Toth in there. The Brett Toth experiment continues. He was in there at left guard. But for most of the practice, it was actually Trevor Keegan, the rookie, that ended up putting Brett Toth at second-team center. And Trevor Keegan in there at left guard, that's the position he played at Michigan. That's really the position he's played in the spring and summer. I know he said he's ambidextrous. He can play both sides of the center, but he looks like a left guard only right now.
Yeah, and the Brett Toth thing surprises me because, I mean, look, how many years has he been around? I mean, he's been around this team since what, like 2018, 2019, on and off the roster, on and off the practice squad. We know he can't play center because he can't snap the ball. You never know where it's going to end up. I just can't imagine him ever being a factor. So why would you start out with him other than they generally don't start out with rookies? That's the only reason I can think of. But if one of those two is going to play, it's not going to be Brett Toth. So a little surprised the way they did that.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, I guess you just defer to Jeff Stoutland. He's really good at this. He likes him a Brett Toth. He's put a lot of time and effort into Brett Toth. So I guess that's where that stems from. But a little surprised to see him in there to start the day.
Yeah.
As far as other depth chart stuff, Isaiah Rodgers got the work, or the first work with the first team defense. We saw Quinyon Mitchell in there as the nickel. So kind of the same thing that they did on the first padded practice, they did on the second padded practice.
Yeah, just when we think Keely Ringo had this thing wrapped up, and it's open competition still, so could go on for a while.
It could. I think then we have a long way to go here. I think this is a competition where it'd be really foolish to wrap up early. You could talk about right guard. I think there's a real benefit in figuring that one out earlier and letting these guys work together. Not saying there's not a benefit to the other corner because they have to know the spacing with the safeties and the linebackers and all that. But I mean, you're an outside corner. It's a little different.
And I wonder if there's extra significance in the fact that Rodgers is practicing with the ones in the padded practices. Does that mean anything, or is it just the way the rotation is? Or I don't know. I don't know what to make of it.
Yeah, I'm not sure either, but he's looked really good.
He has. Yeah.
He got a nice pop from the crowd when, before practice, they're going through and showing that the camera's on a few guys, and Dave Spadero's calling them out. He had definite cheer for Isaiah Rodgers.
It's a great story, and says a lot about Howie. Says a lot about the kid and the work he put in over the last year. We were talking to Paris Campbell, who was with him in Indianapolis, and he said he doesn't look like he missed a day, much less a year. He said he looks like the same guy he was in Indy. So that can go either way. I mean, that's a long time to miss. It's one thing to miss that time and be in the building and be around your coaches and in meetings, taking mental reps at practice. He was in Florida. It's really, if he ends up starting, it's one heck of a story.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And so far, so good for him. I've been really impressed. Kenny Gainwell had a nice night. You missed a good Kenny Gainwell night. I know that bums you out. Yeah. Kenny's your guy. And unfortunately, it was both big plays came against Nakobe Dean. One was just a devastating juke move. He had Dean one-on-one, and Nakobe kind of over pursued, and Kenny Gainwell put his left foot in the ground and took off the other way. It was one of those, it's a tough play to have happen in the open practice if you're the defender, because everyone in the stadium goes, ooh. And then a little later,
where do they go?
I'm not doing that again. A little later, Jalen hit Kenny Gainwell on a wheel route and just had a few steps on Nakobe, ran away from him. And that was the real competitive period at the end of the game, or at the end of the practice. So all eyes on him. And it was a nice play by Kenny, but not a great thing for Nakobe to just lose to Gainwell in coverage like that.
Yeah, those are plays he has to make. I mean, he's trying to win that job. Yeah, he's got to do better than that. And Gainwell's had a really nice summer, and I think there was a sense when they signed Saquon that Gainwell will be kind of an afterthought, but he's going to play. He's going to play a lot, and I'm really curious to see how Kellen Moore splits up the reps with those guys. And I wouldn't be surprised to see Shipley out there a little bit too once we get going with his receiving ability. So he likes using multiple backs, multiple weapons, and he's got several of them.
He does. Just a few other notes from the public practice. Eli Ricks pulled down the first interception of training camp. This is as long as I can remember a camp going without a single interception. We've been close. There was one play earlier on Thursday night where Bryce Huff kind of dropped back into coverage. Jalen Hurts never saw him, and Bryce almost picked it off. And we thought, oh, there it is. But nope. It came on the final play of this practice. They were in that situational period. So it was probably Kenny Pickett forcing it a little bit. It was in a gotta-have-it situation. So take it with a little grain of salt. But Eli Ricks, a guy who's kind of been forgotten in the cornerback competition, comes up with a nice play.
Yeah, and I like Eli Ricks. I thought he did some nice things as an undrafted rookie last year. That position's just so crowded. It's like, where do you fit in? They released Mario Goodrich, so it's a little thinner, but it's – and Jalen still hasn't thrown one, which is notable. But, I mean, I think Ricks is going to make the team. I just don't know where. We'll see. There's too many corners.
Isn't that amazing? It's a good problem to have.
We haven't said that around here forever. So, yeah. But I mean, I think he can play a little bit. If they have to cut him, I don't think he's going to. When we say this all the time, I don't think he'll make it to the practice squad. I think corners with size, he's got a little bit of experience. I think he would get claimed.
Yeah, I think he's an NFL player.
Yeah, I do too.
I think he proved that last year.
Yeah.
Not a ton else to note. I wanted to say Jeremiah Trotter had a really nice blitz, beat Will Shipley, his college teammate, to get a sack. That was a nice play. I saw one great block from Cam Jurgens, really two blocks on one play. And it was fun because normally we're on ground level for practices. So this was I'm up in the press box, so I had the kind of high angle view. And it was just good to see Cam from that angle really get out ahead of Jalen Hurts. And it's Kelsey-like athleticism. He can reach blocks that just not a lot of other centers or offensive linemen in general can reach. And that's what makes him special athletically.
Yeah, and I'm not saying he's Kelsey. I'm not saying he'll ever be Kelsey. But there are moments where you see Kelsey in him, and you get why Kelsey liked him when he scouted him, and why he's kind of like in his image. I mean, he's not Jason Kelsey, but he's able to do some of the things Kelsey did. And it does. It's like there are those wow moments. You're like, wow, he kind of looked like Kelsey on that play. That's going to happen.
Yeah, because I think the one area where they're so different right now is just experience. Kelsey had, over a decade in the league, and that really helps at that position. Ken doesn't have that. It's not his fault. He just doesn't have it yet. So, but yeah, there are moments where you see the athleticism and you understand why they kind of came to this succession plan and why they wanted Cam and why they targeted him and why Jason sees himself in him. And that was one of them. And it was just fun to see it from the high angle.
Yeah. You have like the drone look up there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remembered my binoculars for the public practice, which is always a struggle because I normally leave them at the NovaCare complex, but I remembered to pack them up and bring them with me.
Proud of you.
Yeah. Thank you.
That's from someone who never forgets anything.
It was a fun practice though. Hope everyone who went out enjoyed it. They raised a lot of money for the Eagles Autism Foundation. Don't have a total there yet, but figured $10 a ticket. There's over 40,000 people. That's a lot of money.
And I've said this before, but what a great cause. And the work they do, I mean, it's the amount of money they've raised between their own, the Autism Challenge and all their other events. I mean, it's making a real difference. It's really amazing.
Yeah, it's very cool. Let's do a little stock up, stock down. We've now seen 6 practices of training camp. 2 of them have been padded. We're well into this thing now, so we can start to have some crystallized opinions on players and how they've performed. We can just kind of go back and forth a little bit. Maybe we'll each do a stock up and then each do a stock down until we run out. Sound good?
Yeah.
You want to go first here? A stock up player?
Yeah. Well, I'll say Britton Covey, just because I wrote about him the other day, but I'm really starting to think that they like him on offense as a receiver. And look, there's not going to be a ton of reps for a 5'8" slot who's not the fastest guy in the world, but he catches everything. He's smart. Nobody knows the offense better than him. Maybe Jalen does. I don't know, but he's quick. He's elusive and quick. The same things that make him an effective punt returner, I think, make him help him as a slot, and just that suddenness, the quickness, the elusiveness. He's got great vision. I think there might be a role for him. And, he's caught the ball so well the whole camp. Like when it started, I was like, yeah, Covey can be a receiver. But I was kind of just starting to believe it. I'm starting to believe he can be a factor.
I'm with you. He's on my list too. And I've been more skeptical of that. On the record is more skeptical than you about his receiving ability. But he looks good. He just absolutely looks good out there. And no one else is really – I mean, this wide receiver 3 position is wide open. I found it really curious that Nick Sirianni, when asked about wide receiver 3 on Thursday night, kind of said, like, it doesn't have to be one guy. We like different skill sets in that spot, whether it's Covey's shiftiness or a speed of a John Ross. So they might not just have one wide receiver 3. It might be kind of a mix and match as they go. I don't know if that's ideal, but if they do that, I think Covey could have a role.
And it also kind of fits into Kellen Moore's, at least what we think Kellen Moore's philosophy is, of using all his weapons. If you're up, if you're dressing out that day and you're a skill player, there might be a role for you. And it kind of fits into that where, there could be a game where Calcaterra is the third guy. There could be a game where John Ross is the third guy. And again, we don't know who's going to be on the roster, but I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. But you do need somebody you can, that you can really count on when you're going 3 wides. Like who's that next guy? But it's interesting. I mean, if Kellen Moore if this offense is what I think it is, then I really think there might be something to that, where it's a different guy each, week to week, series to series, play to play.
Yeah, it would be fascinating. I'll stick with the receiver for my stock up. Johnny Wilson, the 6th-round pick, 6'6" out of Florida State. The second receiver the Eagles drafted. He's doing much better than Anaya Smith, a guy who I thought was going to have an impact earlier. But I've been impressed by Johnny Wilson. He's getting more first-team reps, and they're even playing him inside a little bit. I think it's easier for a big guy to play inside than it is for a small guy to play outside.
I would agree with that.
Yeah, and we've seen that with Johnny Wilson now. He looks pretty good catching the ball. He's had a drop here or there. He had a bad one, an individual the other day. But overall, I think he's trending the right way. I think they like him. They even threw a fade to him on Thursday night in the end zone. The other sideline from where they threw that Hakeem Butler fade, so it wasn't ill-fated from the jump. He didn't come down with it. It wasn't a perfect play. The timing was off. That's a real tough timing play, not a real high percentage attempt. But I like that they even tried it. I think they're high on Johnny Wilson right now. I think they really like what they've seen from him.
Yeah, he's popped a little bit, which is hard to do as a late round receiver.
Mm-hmm. What do you want to do? Want to stick with up, or do you want to go to down here?
Let's do it down.
All right, give me a stock down.
I'll go Oren Burks, and he's a guy who I thought. And again, sometimes with these, like if a guy's hurt, I don't know. It's not really that he's not getting the job done, but he's got to be out there. And he's a borderline roster guy before getting hurt, and it's a position where it's wide open. And I think he had a shot to be in the mix just because. Second team linebacker. I mean, he's really losing out on valuable time, valuable reps. I guess Ben Van Sumeren is ahead of him just by default because he's healthy. So Right now, he's not on the roster. I mean, he hasn't done anything. So we'll see when he gets back. If he gets back, we never get timetables on injured guys, but if he's going to have any chance to stick, he's got to get himself healthy and get some reps.
Yeah, I'm with you. He was on my first written stock up, stock down because, yeah, right now you couldn't have him on the team. He's fighting for a backup linebacker spot, and Ben Van Sumeren has looked really good in these special teams drills. When you see which guys are getting praised after their reps. I mean, Ben Van Sumeren is one of the guys who's getting praised most often. He kind of gave them a spark on special teams last year. So if that's what that job comes down to, I'm not sure if you keep the veteran.
No, I would agree.
All right, I'll give you a stock down. I'll go with Kenny Pickett. And it's not that he's looked awful. I think he's made some good throws, but I think he's just a little behind with this offense. You watch Jalen's mastery of it, and he looks really good. Even Tanner McKee looks more comfortable in the offense right now. In the last couple of days, we've seen Tanner McKee get some second-team reps. It's still mostly Kenny Pickett, but I don't know. He's a former first-round pick. I think you have high expectations that he can be a really high-level backup. He's kind of like a fringe starter, high-level backup type player.
Yeah.
Now, I think he's looked better than Marcus Mariota did last training camp.
Low bar.
It was a low bar, and I kind of expected more from Pickett. Now, he has more arm talent than I was expecting. There are some throws where when he's on time and he knows where the ball's going, he can unleash it. But I think the processor is just a little slow right now. And, I think Tanner McKee's looked better.
Tanner McKee's looked good. I would agree with that. I don't think there's a real competition for number 2, but see what happens. I would have been fine going into the season with Tanner McKee as number 2, honestly, from what I saw last year. But I have no problem with them signing Pickett. But I would agree with that. I think it is funny when you watch practice with Dave, and we probably stand together maybe 10%, 20% of the time. I don't know, 15%.
I try not to a lot of the times just because we're going to talk about it on the podcast. We don't want to have the same thoughts.
Yeah, that's true. But once in a while, we just end up in the same area, and you see like Kenny Pickett kind of hold on to the ball. Dave's like, throw the ball.
There's nothing that frustrates me more than quarterbacks in a practice holding on to the football and then completing a pass after 10 seconds.
Yeah.
So what are we doing? This isn't realistic anymore.
Yeah. And sometimes they'll blow the play dead. Sometimes they'll let it go. But I have been, once in a while, Pickett makes a wow throw. I think he throws that out really well, better than I expected. He's got some
zip on it.
He's got some zip on it. But yeah, he doesn't look 100% comfortable. We'll see how that goes.
All right. Give me a stock up guy.
Can I go with Devontae?
Sure.
I know it's ridiculous because the guy's 1,000-yard receiver, but he looks better than ever. He just looks fast and he's just catches everything and such a tough matchup. We talk so much about AJ, and AJ's definitely WR1, but man, Devontae, he could be number 1 on a lot of teams. And I just think he looks better than ever. And I really admire the fact that, look, he could have played his whole career, been 1,000-yard receiver, and he's going to year 4. So he's still clearly hungry to get better. And I really admire that about a guy who's already really, really good. He could have 1,000-yard season every year of his career, have a great career, but there's just so much drive to keep getting better and keep working on his game, and you can see it. And we're seeing it every day at practice. He does something every day that just dazzles you.
Yeah, AJ was really complimentary of Devontae. Basically, like, no one can cover this guy. I don't know if you guys are watching this, but no one's covering him at practice. He looks great.
Yeah,
I agree. But if you can say Devontae Smith, I can say Jalen Carter.
Yeah.
This guy, and sometimes it's tough for a defensive tackle to stand out, especially in practices where they're not in pads and there's not real timing elements of it. But it seems like every single practice, this guy does something that just makes you like shake your head like, oh my God, this guy's a freak.
Yeah.
It's every single practice. I don't think there's like too much hype around Jalen Carter. I don't think you could have too much hype is what I'm trying to say. Like I think all pro Bowl, if you want to say he's going to be competing for Defensive Player of the Year, like none of that would surprise me. I think he has all the talent, is can he be consistent with it? But man, it's just like the pure athleticism. No one moves the way he moves out there. It's so much fun to watch.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I covered Jerome his whole career. I guess I covered Fletcher his whole career. To have, you know, about 3 interior linemen that caliber, and like Corey Simon had a couple really good years in his rookie year. He was very good, but really, I mean, he reminds me of Jerome.
You've said that before. Is that the more you've seen of Jalen, is that like more cemented in your mind, or has he kind of deviated from it?
Yeah, and I think no, I think that all the time. And there's something too about like his personality is more like, this is nothing against Fletcher, who is, I think, a Hall of Famer, but his personality is closer to Jerome as far as just that. Like Fletcher was always very stoic and quiet, and there's just something about Jalen Carter. There's a joy that comes through. There's his eyes just glisten. It's just like, you know, there's so much passion when he's playing. And Fletcher was the same way, but I think he just shows it more as a young player. I mean, he just seems to love every snap and every rep, and just talking to him, I mean, it's Jerome-ish. Those two are, I mean, all 3 of them are all timers. To get 3 guys like that on one team is incredible. Yeah, he's something else. I mean, I just, again, like you said, if he can be consistent, the sky's the limit is a cliche. We don't really use cliches here, but it is. I mean, he can be as good as he wants to be.
Totally agree. Give me a stock down.
Stock down. How about we go with stock down? CJ, your guy, CJ Uzama. Uzama. My bad. Uzama. His stock is so far down, I didn't even say his name right. I thought he was a guy that we talked about kind of in the mix for tight end too, and he just has not looked anything like a tight end too. So just been a disappointing first couple weeks.
Yeah, he hasn't caught the ball fairly well. It's been mostly Grant Calcaterra in there whenever they're in 12 personnel, even a little bit of 11 when Dallas Goedert takes a break. It's Calcaterra out there. It seems like that's just his job. And then do you keep a 9-year veteran as the number 3?
No.
Yeah, I don't know about that. Now, I think definitely Uzama has size. So you thought like, okay, he's going to be a better blocker. And maybe that'll show. We just 2 padded practices. We're not very far into this. Maybe the preseason, but I don't know. I thought they'd give him the chance to win tight end too, and we haven't seen it yet.
No, I don't think he's even in the conversation right now. And then when you're talking about who you're going to keep, I mean, an 11-year veteran is going to make a lot more than a young guy. So that's a Howieism. He just doesn't really keep that kind of guy. If he's anywhere close, maybe, but I don't think he's even in the mix right now. Mm-hmm. I mean, he's probably got more drops than, well, I mean, certainly got more drops than the other tight ends combined. He's had several.
Mm-hmm. And even like he had a nice catch the other day, but he double caught it. He dropped it and then caught it on the ground. So yeah, I haven't been impressed with his hands. And he's a guy that when they signed him, he's had a decent career. Like he played pretty well with the Bengals, got a big free agent deal with the Jets not that long ago. So I thought maybe there's still something left, but he's older. Maybe he's just not the same player anymore.
Looks that way.
I'll give you a stock down, and kind of along the same lines, a veteran who they signed in March, who we thought maybe is going to be a decent player on this team, Matt Hennessy. Yeah. They just keep adding more interior players, right? They signed Max Hennessy in March, 1-year deal.
Matt Hennessy.
What?
You said Max Hennessy.
No, I didn't.
Yeah, you did.
I said Matt Hennessy.
You said Max Hennessy. You're saying Max Sharping, but you said Max Hennessy. Alex, go back in the film. Anyway.
No, I did not. Matt Hennessy. I know the players' names. It's Matt Hennessy. They signed him in March. But since then, they keep adding guys. They added Max Sharping. They drafted day three. They drafted 2 day 3 players in Dylan McMahon and Trevor Keegan. They just signed Nick Gates. They brought in Mekhi Becton. I know they brought him Becton to play tackle and guard, but he's playing guard ahead of him. And now in these practices, how many other guys have played first team guard reps? None for Hennessy. And now he's not even, and for a while it was explained by he's playing second team center. They're getting him ready to be the backup center. He's not even second team center anymore. They've bumped up Dylan McMahon to that job. He's been running second team right guard. So, even though I haven't noticed like terrible play from Hennessy on the field, in fact, I've even seen a few decent plays here and there. I think the actions of the Eagles have to put him in the stock down category.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, they've added 3 3 linemen, 2 interior linemen by trade, another one who they converted, which makes it even almost worse. Like they're doing everything they can to find interior linemen that they're comfortable with. So it doesn't augur well for good old Max.
I said Matt.
Okay. My speakers must be malfunctioning.
We'll each do one more stock up and stock down. You want to do that?
Sure.
You have some more? Give me another stock up.
Well, it kind of coincides with what we were just saying, but Grant Calcaterra, I think, deserves to be on the list. Going into year 3, he's got to make a big jump. They certainly seem confident in him as the second tight end, and like you were just saying, when Goddard is out, he's the guy in there. When they go 12, he's the guy in there with Goddard, and he's looked fine. I don't know if he's made a huge jump. I mean, I think he had a pretty good camp last year and then just didn't play much. His snaps are actually down last year from his rookie year. I wish he was a better blocker. I know they say that, he's getting better at it, but they seem really happy with him.
I think the snaps thing last year was probably just because Goddard was a little healthier. Goddard missed more time 2 years ago, right?
I'd have to look that up, but I mean, Stoll played so many snaps.
Each of the last 2 years.
Goddard missed 5 games in 22 and 3 games last year. So yeah, right.
Yeah, that probably accounts for a lot of that.
Yeah, that would. But they seem really happy with him. I think he's looked good. He's really fluid. He's caught the ball really well. I haven't seen him drop a pass. Have you? You remember a drop?
No, he's looked good.
So we'll see. I'm still not. I thought they would do more in the offseason, tight end. I thought they brought in some guys who haven't really panned out, but and I still think there's a chance they might add someone there. But right now, he's the guy.
Okay, for my last stock up, do you want me to go big name or under the radar?
I like the under the radar guys.
Under the radar. You're gonna make fun of me for this one because I'm now, I guess I'm invested in this player. But I think Jalix Hunt has flashed quite a bit. It's very clear to see the raw skills that the Eagles liked and why they used the 3rd round pick on him. He's flashed, and also he hasn't looked as raw as I've expected. You think they draft this guy in the 3rd round coming from Houston Christian. He was a safety at Cornell a few years ago. He's going to not know how to line up, right? But he hasn't looked like that. I think he's looked really good. I don't know if he's going to earn much playing time, but I think he's flashed. Yeah,
I think that's a good point that he hasn't looked out of place.
Mm-hmm.
I thought he would. Like sometimes with these, I don't know, these project type guys. Yeah, I mean, it takes them a while just to know where to line up, where to go, how to put their pads on. You just never know. But yeah, I don't understand. Houston Baptist became Houston Christian.
Yeah, they changed the name of the school.
Did the whole university like convert from Baptist to Christian? I don't understand.
Well, Baptist is like
it's
a part of, so they just widen their
scope.
Yeah.
So the Baptists are still welcome.
Yeah. Now the Lutherans can come by and
okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm. Methodists are allowed.
Methodists are allowed?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
All the Christians.
They've really expanded.
Christian Ellis is allowed.
What is?
Christian Ellis.
Oh, Christian Ellis. Yeah. They could use Christian Ellis right about now. I guess we'll see him. We'll see him pretty soon.
That's true. Joint practice with the Patriots.
Yeah.
How about a stock down?
Stock down. I don't know if I have another one who we haven't touched on. Let me check my list.
Well, while you're doing that,
I would say Cooper DeJean, just because it's. I'll do a combo of Cooper DeJean and Tyler Steen. They got to get healthy. We don't know how long they'll be out, but high expectations of both of them. There's a role for both of them if they have a good camp. I'd say Tyler Steen more. I'll say Tyler Steen. And we don't know how long he'll be out, but I mean, have you seen him on the field at all?
He's been like watching practice.
Yeah. Yeah, he's just got to get healthy, and he's not helping himself. And I still think he's got a shot at winning that job.
Sure. It's not like Mekhi Becton has looked incredible.
No, and it's still a new position for him. It's still a new position for Tyler. But if he's going to have any chance, and like we said, they keep adding these interior guys. Yeah, he's got to get out there.
Yeah. My last stock down is someone who we've mentioned before. I don't want to rag on the kid too much, but Anaya Smith. He just hasn't looked great. He's and in the spring, I thought he struggled a little bit, but he was coming back from injury, and you thought, okay, you can excuse it a little bit. But even when he's like punt returning, it hasn't looked smooth. He's someone I really like that pick. You watch his tape, and he had a ton of juice in college. So still plenty of time. Sometimes it takes rookies longer. So not out on Anaya Smith, but I think it's clear that Johnny Wilson's past him, and there are a bunch of other receivers fighting for playing time, and he's not quite there.
That's fair.
All right, let's take a little break. We have a bunch of questions to get to on the other side, so we don't want to waste any more time.
You deserve a car that thrills you, a car that puts goosebumps on your goosebumps. At Nissan, we got everything from turbocharged SUVs to 100% electric vehicles that'll make your heart beat faster. Experience the thrill for yourself and shop your local Nissan store at nissanusa.com today.
Celebrity cook Steve Martorano brings his Italian-American cooking back home to Philly. Enjoy Martorano's Prime at Rivers Casino and Steve's famous meatballs with Sunday gravy, prime steaks, and more. Make reservations at Martorano's Prime on Open Table. Before we get to all these questions, we did have a chance to talk to some players on Thursday via Zoom, a little throwback to the COVID days, but
really,
yeah. I thought A.J. Brown talking about Quinyon Mitchell was awesome.
It was great.
Very cool. The one-on-ones, basically, like the players get to decide who they face. And AJ wants Quinyon because he knows the rookie's going to talk some trash, and that fires AJ up. But AJ Brown also wants to kind of see how the rookie responds. And so far, those battles have been fantastic.
Yeah, and I have to say, I never realized that the players had that much freedom in who they go up against. Like I knew there would be reps where it's like, all right, let's do this here. But that's pretty cool that they have that freedom to pick and choose who they want who they want to work against.
And a lot of time it's like, they just line up and whoever you line up against. But if you can kind of see the guy over there, you kind of look at each other like, let's time this out.
Yeah. So that's cool. And I mean, the work has been really good. And AJ, I mean, he wins a lot of those battles, but Quinyon holds his own. I mean, he really does, and he doesn't back down. And that's what you want to see. It's not really a matter. I mean, you're going to get beat, but it's like, how do you react? How do you handle it and bounce back for the next rep? It's been really impressive from that standpoint. And people talk about leadership, and it's a word we throw around. And to me, leadership isn't really the rah-rah speeches. Maybe that's a part of it sometimes, but to me, this is leadership that AJ Brown shows by helping this young kid along, by challenging him and trying to get the best out of him. By, you want to be the best, you got to face the best, and it's been fun to watch.
It kind of reminds me of 2021 when Devontae Smith came in and Slay was just with him all the time. It's very similar to that.
Yeah, and they've got veterans who are, and I think it's part of roster building is bringing in guys who really are team oriented and want their teammates to do well, and they understand that high tide raises all ships, and we're seeing that.
We talked a bunch of like heavy hitters on Thursday. Two of the guys, Lane Johnson and Brandon Graham, two of the longest tenured players in the organization, both mentioned that preseason games are a possibility. I think it's trending that way, especially with one joint practice. So we're going to see the starters out there a little bit in the preseason this year. Yeah,
Lane mentioned it, and then BG went into more detail. And they both said, and to me, when two guys say that, that means it's something that has come up in a meeting. Like, don't tell anyone this, but starters are going to play. You can tell when something's, like when something's been talked about. It's too much of a coincidence, I think. But they both said they expect to play at least a couple series, which I don't think is a bad thing. Is it a little risky? And it's something that, I mean, Nick first brought it up after the Patriots game. He said, I put it in my notebook that we might have to do that next year because they're really sloppy in that game, the opener.
Could have lost that game.
And so it'll be interesting, and I'm still not sold on it. You can get a guy hurt, and they have gotten off to good starts, but a couple series, I don't think is a bad thing.
Yeah, especially just to make up for the lack of joint practices.
Yeah.
You're only going to have one. Last year they had 3. They've had multiple ones in recent years. So if you're not going to have that and you put so much stock into that, then you probably need to replace it in some way.
Yeah, and I think the reason they're only doing the one day with the Patriots and that's it. They play the Ravens in the regular season. Mm-hmm. I don't think you don't want. I mean, they had joint practices with the Jets when they played them, but I don't think it's an ideal situation to have joint practices against a team you're going to play. And then the Vikings game, like the Vikings, I think Nick is concerned about how like they start the season earlier with the Brazil trip, and I just don't know if he wants to do them that late in the preseason. So I think you'll see some guys get some run. Jalen, I don't think Jalen's played in a preseason game in a few years.
Yeah, the last time was when they played the Jets and he got hit late, and that was when Nick Sirianni was yelling across the field at Robert Saleh.
That's right.
That was the last time Jalen played in the preseason.
That was the first preseason game in 22, I think. Right? Or was it 21?
Might have been 21.
Might have been 21. Yeah. So has Saleh been there that long?
Yeah, I think so.
Has he? Okay. But yeah, it'll make preseason games at least a little more interesting, having guys who are actually going to make the team. Mm-hmm. Saleh's first year is 21, so yeah. So that was it was good to hear.
It was. All right, we have a bunch of questions. I don't want to waste any more time. Eagle-eye at NBCUni.com. If you're watching on YouTube, you have the QR code. You can scan that, and you can send a question right from your phone if you want. Let's get into it. First one from Byron. Love the podcast. Love listening on the podcast to work. Keep up the good work. Let's say the offense is number 1 in the league and has great success this year. Do you think Mr. Lurie will consider Kellen over Nick if Kellen is getting head coaching buzz around the league. And I want to mention, this is a question that keeps coming up. We've got like multiple questions in the inbox with this general idea.
And you got that yesterday at the
live Q&A. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if the Eagles have the number one offense in the league, presumably they're going to have a pretty good year, and you're not going to fire the head coach after a good year. It's just I know everyone loves Kellen Moore all of a sudden, and for whatever reason, people can't stand Nick. But Nick's not getting fired if they have a good year and have a good run in the playoffs. And can they be 6-11 with the number one offense in the league? And Kellen Moore gets, I guess it's possible, but look, there's virtually no chance. And you made the point that, I mean, the fact that that Lurie kept Nick after the way last year ended tells you that he thinks highly of Nick Sirianni, and he should. He's a good coach, and he's had great success through the playoffs every year. So why would that change overnight? I just don't see it. I think if Nick gets fired, the whole staff gets fired.
I think you're probably right. All right, next one from Aaron. Hi, Coach Aaron from Sydney, Australia. Love your show. Who do you think makes the team in the secondary? My picks: Rogers, Slay, Ringo, DeJean, Mitchell, Reed, CJ, and Maddox. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 defensive backs. They'll go heavier there for sure. Yeah. How many? Let's go with numbers here. At cornerback, they could keep as many as 6 or 7.
Yeah, he's kept 7.
At safety, it's tricky right now because Sidney Brown is on the PUP, on the physically unable to perform list. So we don't know if he starts the season there. Then that changes the numbers a little bit.
Yeah, and what is it? 4 weeks now?
It's only 4 weeks. It used to be 6.
It's gone from 6 to 4. So I kind of don't. Well, it's too early to really say, but I think there's a pretty good chance he won't be ready.
I just don't know.
Yeah. No, there's no way to know. Yeah, I mean, I think he's going to keep 7 corners. I think with the talent they have, these guys play special teams. And then you have guys who can, I mean, like Maddox, I think he'll make the team and count as one of everything. I mean, he can help out anywhere.
Yeah, so if Quinyon Mitchell ends up being your starting nickel, which is very possible, then that opens the door to have Avante as a backup safety.
Yeah. Yeah, and yeah, which you can, I mean, they're looking for versatility with their backups, and he offers that. And he's still healthy. Good for him.
Yep. Next question, not really a question, a comment from Matthew. Hi, Reuben Dave. Rube, I was out in the field harvesting potatoes this morning, listening to the podcast when I heard you mention that you're in my neighborhood for your vacation. I'm a Philly fan up here in the Finger Lakes, and we live and farm in Hector, just north of Watkins Glen. I'm glad you enjoyed the state park and the waterfalls. Stop in and say hi the next time you visit the Finger Lakes. Plenty of Philly fans up here.
I like it.
It was a nice little message. No question, but thank you for that, Matthew.
Yeah, maybe I can.
Next one from Michael. We got this. Yeah. Next question from Michael. We got this one a lot. Wanted to ask you both, what do you think about the possibility of the Eagles adding Justin Simmons to the defense to play safety? I think that he will be better suited than Reed Blankenship.
I mean, it's not going to happen. So that's not how Howie's going to spend his money.
Yeah, I'm guessing Justin Simmons' asking price is still way too high. Yeah. He's still out there. He's a good player, a little long in the tooth. I know they were interested in him when they signed C.J. Gardner-Johnson, and obviously they had interest in him. He played for Vic, and he knows at least the basics of this defense. I don't know if he'd want to come here and be a rotational backup. I think he's going to wait for his opportunity to try to start somewhere. And I don't know if Reed has done anything to lose his job.
Yeah, I mean, Justin Simmons is a better player than Reed Blankenship. Are you gonna bring in a 30-year-old? Was he 30, 31? And he's been a really good player. I think he's played his whole career with the Broncos, right? But yeah, it's just not a change that's anywhere near Howie Roseman's style. It's not going to happen.
Okay. Next one from Jared. Having a tough couple weeks as my mother is terminally ill. Podcast helps tremendously, so thank you. Rube, I think we have somewhat similar music taste, and I was wondering what your top 5 albums would be.
My top 5 albums of all time?
Yeah.
Oh, God.
First, Jared, we wish you the best. We're glad we can be a little distraction. Rube, do you have I know you list everything. Do you have a list of just albums?
No, I'm probably somewhere, but let me think about that. They'd probably all be off the beaten path. As much as I love, Who's Next and Wish You Were Here and some of the classic rock staples, I would put number 1, Book of Your Regrets by the Rave Ups. Check it out. Listen to it. It's incredible. Band from Pittsburgh, the Rave Ups. Number 2, I would probably go with I'm gonna mix it up. I'll probably go with Close to the Edge by Yes, number 2. This is impossible. Matt Keating, I'll go with Tell It to Yourself, his first album. Matt Keating, New York songwriter. Yesterday was his birthday, by the way. Man, how many does he want? 5?
5. You got the 3. 3's pretty good. A top 3's good.
It's I will go with some Fleetwood Mac, number 4. I'll put Tusk on there. It's a record that I think is just incredibly underrated, brilliant. Got to see Fleetwood Mac at the Wells Fargo Center back before Christine McVie passed, and it was just one of the greatest shows I've ever seen. And they played Tusk, which is the USC marching band's theme song, which is really cool. And I guess number 5, we can put some probably put some Uncle Tupelo on there, or Wilco. We'll go with Uncle Tup with Still Feel Gone. I'll go with that.
All right.
My top. But ask me tomorrow, it might be 5 different albums.
That's fine. You did a good job there. Next one from Iverson. Hey guys, I love listening to the podcast. You guys have great insight before and after games and also during training camp. I wanted to ask you if you think Slay will still be a starter by the end of the season. Will a young talent beat him out? And if so, who?
I think Slay's had a great camp.
He's looked fine. Now he's getting beat sometimes, every once in a while, but it's by A.J. Brown, who's a top 5 receiver.
Yeah, I mean, the number one thing you look for, he's coming off an injury. He's 33. He looks fast. He can run. I don't think he's slowed down at all. I think the thing about Slay, he's such a clown all the time. He's always joking. He's always laughing. But he really takes the game seriously and studies the game, studies receivers, and he takes care of himself. He's in great shape. I think he's looked fine. I wouldn't expect. Now, next year's a different animal. I think there's a chance that he is gone next year. Kind of Howie's MO is, get the young guys going and then move on from the older guys before they, you try to kind of high point them and when their decline is going to start. Sometimes they miss on that, but it's a good philosophy. I think next year you could see, out of all these young guys, you could see 2 of them starting outside, another one in the slot. But I think Slay will be there for the duration this year.
I do too, but we also know that he's older, and at some point he's going to slow down. It's nice to have a little bit of backup here.
Yeah.
If that does happen. Now, we haven't seen any signs of it, but you never know. In the case that it does happen, I think you feel pretty good about the depth here.
Yeah. And, certainly if that does happen, let's say Isaiah Rodgers wins the job and Quinyon Mitchell's in the slot. I mean, you have Keely Ringo. I mean, or you could move by then you can move Cooper DeJean into the slot and have Quinyon outside. I mean, there's a lot of possibilities. Whatever happens, I think that position's in really good hands right now.
Yeah, I agree. Next one from David. Hi, Dave and Rube. I'm a diehard Eagles fan living in Portland, Oregon. I really enjoy listening to your pods whenever they become available. I don't know how you guys can be so entertaining and insightful at the same time. Thanks for all you do. I had a two-part question. For some reason, in recent history, the Eagles seem to have a preference for dual threat quarterbacks over more traditional pocket quarterbacks. Why do you think that is? And the second part of his question is about protecting Jalen Hurts and changes in offensive philosophy that might limit the amount of hits he takes. But they kind of work together. Do you think it's coincidence? Do you think there's some reason behind it?
It's a great question. It's something I've wondered about myself. I mean, if you made a list of like the greatest running quarterbacks, I mean, Donovan later in his career, he stopped running. So did, Randall did, but after he left here, obviously Vic was established as that kind of guy before he got here. Jalen has been really good at it. I mean, so like they haven't had a lot of classic drop back, Kevin Cobb type.
Nick Foles,
Sam
even
Bradford.
Carson was like, he was in the middle.
Yeah.
He was mobile.
Yeah. He was mobile. He was
a runner.
Really athletic when he first, he didn't like to run a lot, but yeah, he was really elusive early on, like before he started getting hurt. And he was so strong, like his legs were so strong, he could break out of near sacks. We saw that a lot. He was really good there for a while, by the way.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it's something that Jeff Lurie just has, just thinks that's where, the most dangerous. I don't know. I don't know if there's any rhyme or reason to it. I mean, obviously Howie didn't draft, only drafted Jalen out of that group. And Jalen's the only one Howie brought in as GM.
Yeah, he was here obviously when they brought in Vic.
He was here. Yeah. He was whatever his title was, but it's an interesting question. And it's something I've thought about a lot. Like I can only imagine, maybe it's a question for Jeff Lurie. If it's just when we talk to him, that's not the kind of question you really have time to ask him, but I'd love to ask him that sometime.
Yeah. And as far as the second part of that question, I don't know what I've seen so far this summer. It looks like a lot of design runs, a lot of read option and a lot of zone reads. And like, I think that Jalen's legs are still going to be a really big part of this offense.
Yeah, Kellen Moore, last time we talked to him, even said that. He said, he's really good at it. We're going to use it, and we're also going to be smart about it. And he said he thinks Jalen's really smart about protecting himself, which I'm not sure I totally agree with.
He was last year, almost to his detriment at times.
Yeah, and I think last year I don't think he was healthy. But I think he understood his limitations because he just couldn't. He just didn't have that zip. But yeah, if he can be smart about it, it's a weapon that you don't want to ignore.
Yep. Two more quick ones, and then we'll wrap this pod up.
My favorite album of the last 20 years is the RFA, their first album, and I should include that on the list too. So it's top 6 now. Philly band, RFA.
We'll see how many albums we have by the end of this pod.
Yeah, like 112.
Ian, does Jalen Hunt have a chance to break into the pass rush rotation? If so, who would he replace? We talked about this a little earlier. I think he can get some snaps. He's not going to replace any of those top guys. Not this year.
No, I think the only chance he would be if somebody gets hurt. If he keeps doing well, somebody gets hurt. I just don't see it otherwise. Yeah.
Even if he looks great, I mean, they've invested in the other players.
Yeah. And I mean, I guess there's a chance that BG, what is he, 36 now, doesn't have anything left. I hate to even say that, and BG would kill me, but it's possible. He could be at that point. Maybe if that happens, if he's just not generating any pressure, and I don't think that's going to happen, but if that does happen, or if Nolan is completely ineffective or the shoulder's bothering him, but I think it would take something like that to get Jalen in the mix.
Yeah. All right. Last one for today from Alex. Greetings from the Hall of Fame city. Add another out-of-towner to the list of big fans. See you all in 5 years for Kelsey. Simple question here. If all things are equal, and they are for me, which platform helps you guys the most, YouTube or Spotify? I don't know. I don't think I care either. What helps us most? Watch or listen, however you guys want to watch or listen. That's my answer.
But we should mention, since he mentioned Canton, that Merrill Reese is being honored today.
Yeah, and that's why I wanted to finish with this one, because it's such a cool thing. I don't know if you saw the video the Eagles put out. He broke down the practice huddle the other day. It made Jalen Hurts smile, which, not a lot makes Jalen Hurts smile, but everyone just has so much love for Merrill.
Yeah, and it's so deserving, and he's such an icon. I mean, his voice just goes with the team. Like if he wasn't doing Eagles games, like you couldn't picture him doing like a Jaguars Vikings game. Like it just doesn't work. His voice is the Eagles, and it's just such an iconic. And I mean, back in Lehigh, remember how I used to have the tennis courts right by the practice fields? I used to play tennis with him, and it was unnerving because he'd be like 40-15. It's just like nice half volley, and that is just that voice, and that's how he talks. Like that's just like.
There was one moment where we were in the old media room at the NovaCare complex, and he answers the phone and he goes, "Oh yeah, this is Merrill Reese." And I was like, "Yeah, Merrill, everyone knows it's you." It was very funny. He's the best though, man. Nicest human on the planet too. Like sometimes you might hear stories about people that you hold in reverence and they end up not being who you want them to be. Merrill's better than you can like. If you meet Merrill Reese, he's gonna be happy to see you. He's gonna be so gracious with his time. He's the best.
Yeah, he is. And his son Nolan is a huge Guided by Voices fan. His son Nolan's a film editor in Hollywood and a huge Guided by Voices fan, which reminds me, I got to put a GBV album on my top 5. So we'll go with Universal Truths and Cycles from 2001. So we'll put that on the top 5. But
okay, so we're up to 7 now.
There's I know Don Smolensky's going out. The Eagles have a contingent going out. All the guys who work with Merrill on the broadcast are going out. Quick's going out. He's out there. I was disappointed to hear Stan Walters, who preceded Mike as the analyst, as the color guy on radio, wasn't able to make it out there. Stan, who's a great player for the Eagles, offensive tackle back in the 80s. I know he wanted to be out there, but good for Merrill. I'm sure he'll be honored at the banquet tonight at the convention hall there in Canton, and well deserved. And I know he's relishing the time he's got out there.
Yep. Well, congrats to Merrill. Well deserved. If you enjoy the Eagle Eye podcast, please do us a favor, rate and subscribe wherever you get your pods. If you're watching on YouTube, click that like button, subscribe there as well. That's it. Hope everyone has a great weekend. For Rube, I'm Dave. This has been Eagle Eye, presented by Nissan. We'll talk to you soon.